What's up, everybody? This is Ron Spartman from Stardom, and today we have Morgan Irons, founder and chief science officer of Deep Space Ecology. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
We're glad to have you today, and we've got so much to cover, so we're just going to dive right in. But first, before we get into the deeper levels of what it is you're up to these days, what inspires your love for space and science?
So I've always enjoyed everything about space ever since I was little. One of my favorite movies is The Navigator. It's a pretty old movie, but I was fascinated by just the idea of extraterrestrial life and having environments and species outside of Earth's biosphere. It was just very fascinating for me. And so growing up, I was always interested in space, but I also had this love for environmental science and biology. So I'm a very outdoorsy person, love to get involved in environmental initiatives. And I interned at NASA Langley Research Center in Virginia my senior year of high school. So that's where I started off in the space realm. And then in college, I was able to combine my two passions for space exploration and environmental science into what I'm doing today.
Which leads us perfectly into the next question. A lot of people know what ecology is, and not everybody knows all the different varieties of astrosciences. Can you tell us a little bit about what astroecology is and how it kind of sparked your interest?
Definitely. So ecology is pretty much the interaction between different organisms and their relationships with each other and how they also interact with their physical surroundings. So when we're talking about astroecology, we're talking about how these organisms interact with the space environment. And this is a branch, you could say, of astrobiology, just like ecology is a branch of biology.
Fantastic. And so it takes a lot of subjects and a lot of time for you to understand the gamut of what it is that you're up to. So can you make everybody feel as bad as you made me feel about 2 hours ago and tell them about your background and everything that you've accomplished while you were at a very prestigious school, Duke?
Yes. So I got my degrees at Duke. This past year. I graduated fall 2017. I got my Bachelor of Science degrees in Environmental Science and Biology with a minor in Chemistry, and I also completed the pre-medicine track at Duke because initially when I started off at Duke, I was thinking about going into the medical field because that's also another passion of mine. And when I kind of switched my focus to focus more on the environmental science, space exploration side of things, the reason why I kept with the pre-medicine track at Duke was so I could have that perspective of how humans interact with their environment and how that affects their health. And that's an important aspect when it comes to developing an agricultural system or an ecological system where humans are a part of that loop.
Excellent. And so you do a great deal of things outside of just your main studies. So you help with a whole lot of different organizations. And one of the things that you did at Duke was you helped put together some of their TEDx programs. Can you take us briefly a little bit behind the scenes of how you were involved and what it takes to put on an event like that? Because TED, I mean, everybody knows what TED is nowadays, and it's blown up everywhere. So what was your involvement in that?
So I was involved with TEDx Duke my 4 years at Duke. I started off as a committee member in the advertising committee, so helping get the word out about the event. And then my last 2 years at Duke, I was on, 3 years. For 3 years at Duke, so my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I was on their executive board. And so I was more involved with all the nitty-gritty logistics dealing with planning an event where you have 500 plus people coming to hear about 10 to 12 speakers over a couple of hours. And so pretty much to plan an event like that, you have to start months in advance. So we start as soon as school starts, and that's for new people coming in. If you're a continuing member on the executive board, then you start during the summer. So we start putting together the logistics during the summer, reach out to people who have sponsored us in the past and will sponsor us again to help with funding, because one of the things that we like to offer is free admission to students. And yeah, and they get a free t-shirt with that as well. And so yeah, we have the marketing committee, the speaker committee, the planning committee when it comes to finding the location that we're having it. And there's just a lot that goes into it, but
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun, and that experience has helped me move forward with my career, especially going into the entrepreneurial side of the space industry and planning large projects and getting other people involved, working in committees, working with a diverse group of people who bring their own skills and knowledge with them.
And I think that I'm sure that's probably helping with your current studies. You're now moving into a PhD program, and I have to admit I'm a little jealous. You're going to Cornell. Congratulations on that. That's amazing, and I'm sure we're going to see incredible things out of you there the next few years. So can you give us a quick breakdown of what it is you'll be studying, what you'll be working on, and its impacts on future space travel?
Definitely. So I am working with Dr. Johannes Lehman. He's my PhD advisor. And his research is in mostly the soil sciences. So the field in which I'm getting my PhD is the soil and crop sciences field. And the reason why I went with that was to continue on with the research that I had performed at Duke, looking at how we can develop agroecological systems from scratch. For space exploration, I want, with my PhD, to get more into the nitty-gritty cycles, the biogeochemical cycles that happen in soil, and how we can take degraded regolith that you would find on other planets and even here on Earth and make them arable for agricultural use. And that has applications not only for space exploration using the regolith on Mars or the Moon, but also in extreme environments here on Earth, where we have non-arable land where people are living or where people want to live. And to be able to support themselves, they will need that food source. So how can we support communities that are in these food insecure areas? And so my PhD is pretty much looking into the fundamental research behind how we can develop these soils to support agroecological systems.
So saving the world. Okay, great.
At least helping it along.
at least helping it along, which is incredible work, and that has led to the creation of Deep Space Ecology, which we mentioned a little bit earlier. So can you give us a quick breakdown of how the idea for the company kind of formed, and then what your dream is for it, where you see it in 5-10 years?
Yeah, so Deep Space Ecology, the mission of Deep Space Ecology is to help solve food security problems on the Earth, Moon, Mars, and beyond, because there are so many questions that are involved in so many gaps of knowledge that we currently have when it comes to how we are able to grow food in extreme, in a hospitable environment. I mean, we still have these questions here on Earth as well. And so Deep Space Ecology was formed from my research that I performed in my undergraduate years at Duke, where I was looking at closed ecological systems for space habitation. I did a literature review of all the past research starting in the 1960s Soviet Union with the BIOS experiments going all the way forward with Biosphere 2, what the European Space Agency is doing with the Melissa system. And so when I was doing this literature review and looking at what was going right with the systems and what was going wrong with the systems, I decided to bring in my environmental science perspective, which is a little bit different from what we've seen in the space industry. There's been a lot of biologists, ecologists in the space industry. And with the environmental science side, you're looking more at landscape theory, system level aspects instead of just plant by plant interactions, things like that. And so when I was seeing how I could solve these problems in these past systems, I had a eureka moment. It really was a eureka moment. I was outside of my, one of my advisor's offices waiting to go into a meeting with him. He was running late. And I was sitting on the floor with my notebook, writing down my notes, trying to get past this block I had in my head for like how I could approach some of these problems. And it just hit me to develop something that I call the 3-zone model. And I may have screamed, like it might have been a both hands in the air moment.
Yeah.
When you're passionate about something, your inhibitions kind of go down.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
We all try to be very professional, but sometimes our emotions take over. So that's completely okay. So can you give us a quick breakdown of what the 3-zone system is?
Yeah, so the 3-zone system in its most simple form is 3 circles inside of each other. And the innermost circle is your habitation zone or your ecosystem, where you have humans living, doing their daily lives, stuff like that. And then outside of that, you have your agricultural zone. And that's where humans grow the food that they need, get the resources that they need in a more controlled environment where they're directly involved with it. And then the area surrounding that is what I would call your ecological buffer zone. On Earth, you would just simply call that your wilderness. It's pretty much where you just have biology growing however it may, really no human interaction with it. And when you think about it, you're like, but that's really how humans have evolved here on Earth with agrarian societies. That's exactly how agrarian societies have evolved. Well, there is something to that, where if you have a pest or a disease wipe out your agricultural system that you're so reliant on, you can go out into the wilderness surrounding your community and get the resources that you need to bring back into the community so that you can reestablish your agricultural system without going into famine or having a more difficult time. And so one of the things that I was thinking when I developed the system is, since we're going to be having a closed or quasi-closed system on Mars or the moon, we need to find a way for people to adapt, have that natural adaptability that we've always had here on Earth, where we've been able to solve problems just by using the local environment around us. And on Mars, we won't have that anymore. So being able to not only have an agricultural system, but also a ecological buffering system that provides more diversity of plant species, more resources that you can bring in, will really help with human adaptation on other planets. And then, of course, there's a lot of ecological theories and principles, landscape theory, how landscapes work, that goes into how an ecological buffer zone will benefit your agricultural zone and vice versa, so that they don't degrade, so that they don't fail. So I could probably spend a couple of hours just talking about that. So I have an alternative for people who want to learn more about that. My 3-zone model is now a patent. It's a US patent. And I can provide the number for that patent, and you can write it down or provide it in your description for the video, where people can go onto the US Patent and Trademark website and read my patent for this design, for this architecture, for a quasi-closed agroecological system, and get a better high-level look at how this system works.
And And you've also discussed this at a few different major, you've had a few major talks about this as well. So we'll snag those links and give them below. So that way, this is, again, very succinct version of it. I've heard you speak about it a little bit at Mars Society Convention. So there's a lot there that that people can dive into. So we'll certainly put that below. And everything you've been working on has really been growing by leaps and bounds. And we know that there's some of it you can tell us about, and there's some of it that's kind of, in the works, so to speak. So we can start some conspiracies here today. You know how people love the space conspiracies. So what do they do? Yes. It's crazy. But so one of but your first PhD experiment is actually, you have it coming up in November, and it's intriguing. So can you give us a quick breakdown of what you can tell us and what's coming up with that?
Yep. So this first experiment that I'm doing on the ISS is in collaborations with my company, Deep Space Ecology, as well as with the company Alpha Space, which runs the MISSI system on the ISS. The MISSI system stands for Materials International Space Station Experiment. And so usually what this system is used for is to test materials on the outside of the ISS. And so we're working with them to bring a fundamental soil science experiment onto the ISS. And this is important because we haven't really ever brought a soil into low Earth orbit because we've developed more hydroponic technology that is able to support plant life in a low Earth orbit. So I'm interested to see how soil would react in low Earth orbit and what that would mean for when we actually use regolith on the moon, on Mars, to grow the agriculture and plants that we will need for our habitation systems. And so this experiment will provide researchers with insight into how we can develop and grow these robust agricultural ecosystems on other planets using the geological material there. And so with this experiment, we are currently having a campaign fundraiser on Orbit Muse to raise the initial $7,000 that we need as pretty much a down payment to help with technology development and the like. And so we named our, my father decided to name the campaign, and I kind of had to shake my head a little bit. The name of the campaign is and I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, the Sokovia Protocol.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's very much a nerdy Avengers Age of Ultron reference, where there's that part in the movie where Sokovia the city of Sokovia is raised up, dirt and all, into the air. And so you could say that calling this campaign the Sokovia Protocol is kind of ironic since we are also bringing dirt into space.
It sounds like your father's sense of humor.
Yes, it sounds very much like my father.
So can you tell people where they can find out more information on this, the website, and we're definitely going to drop that in the comments below as well.
Yep, so our campaign is being run on Orbit Muse, and you can go to orbitmuse.com and look up the Sokovia Protocol, and you can share it with your network, share it with your friends, donate as well. We have funding rewards for different levels of funding that people provide. And for the very, very enthusiastic space lovers, we do have a special offering where if you donate $5,000 plus, you will get a sterilized piece of the actual capsule that we will be having returned from the ISS that had the experiment in it. So if you want to mount that piece of space history on your mantle, Well, there you go.
That sounds like a steal to me at twice the price. There's a Beyond LEO mission that you guys are working on and have in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about what you can say, and then where people can look for that in the future?
Mm-hmm. So there is a project in the works right now for an experiment beyond low Earth orbit, and we're hoping to be able to announce more information about it over either the next couple of months or within a year. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could tell more. Let's just say that it could be very groundbreaking, and people everywhere may be interested in it, and it would definitely open up the arena of space for a more diverse set of researchers when it comes to different fields.
Mysterious, I like it. So we'll continue. But I think you've got one other thing you're working on, and I love the way that Lee had explained this. That's a SuperSecret Earth initiative that you're also working on. So can you give us, brief details? Obviously, that's something to look forward to in the future, but just a quick breakdown of what you can tell us about that so far.
Yeah, so we, being a new space company, mm-hmm. we work on Earth as well as in space. Mm-hmm. And so I've already mentioned that our Earth focus is on food security, agriculture, in the agricultural industry in communities around the world. And so our SuperSecret Earth initiative is, what I have to think a moment to make sure, sparse everything. This is what comes with getting into business.
yeah, exactly. I've got a bunch of great ideas. What can I tell people and what can I not tell them? Exactly. Especially when it's publicly out there. Anybody can click share on this. You never know. So.
Yep. So with this Earth initiative that we have going, we're hoping to involve different partners with it, and that can include business partners as well as nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. And we hope that through it we can start to help people in different situations where they are suffering from lack of food, lack of having security and access to clean food and water.
And I think a major thing to work on, and it's something that I think everybody talks about. It's one of the greatest questions that we have to solve is hunger across the world. So we'll be excited to hear more. We'll do an update in the future once you guys can share a little bit more with us. But before we finish up, there's a couple other things that you're heavily involved with outside of your own organization that are impressive as well. And one of them is, of course, you love Mars just like we do, like I do. And you work with the Mars Generation. And so can you give us a quick breakdown of what it is you do with them and what the organization itself is?
So I am the vice chair of their Student Space Ambassador Leadership Programs Advisory Board. Mm-hmm. So I work with the students that are part of the Mars Generation. Mm-hmm. to help bring them resources, mentorship, and activities and involvement in the space industry as they progress through their education. So we have students who are in elementary school, middle school, high school, going all the way up into college, and then of course getting educators involved to help get schools involved and bring the word out more about STEM and STEAM education and research in the space industry. And so my role in the Mars Generation is to help support the advisory board, of course, and then I'm the chair of their program development committee. Mm-hmm. So for people who were involved in Train Like a Martian this past year, I was heading that project, and it was one of those projects where I'm glad I had my TEDx Duke experience.
It looked like a lot of planning. It really did.
Yeah. it was interesting because I've been involved with Train Like a Martian since they started.
Mhm.
And you don't realize how much work actually goes into this event
Mhm.
until you actually have to head the program.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And
Well, I mean,
we
what's the average amount of people that are involved in it? I mean, it's got to be heavy. I know that it's shared everywhere. It's talked about. I mean, it's one of the most popular organizations out there. What Abby's
Mhm.
doing and what the organization itself is doing has become quite widespread. So, I mean, what are you looking at logistics wise when you're saying I have to sit down and put all of this together?
Yeah, so the advisory board is still relatively new,
Mhm.
and we're hoping to expand it in the future with more board members. So with this, for developing Train Like a Martian for this year, there were, including myself, 4 active people working on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And with so
Yeah.
many people working on, I mean, and some people and many people involved in it, it's a lot, it's like there's one person for every 1,000, it's just,
Mhm.
but it's amazing to see, on the other end of it, how successful it was and how you were able to work through those things. And Mars Generation continues to be something that everybody should watch. If you guys aren't following it, we'll add that link below as well. So that way everybody can check it out. And you've been joining us from DC today, which is amazing. You were actually there for the Brooke Owens annual session that's going on right now. So can you tell us a little bit about becoming a fellow and what that entails, what the organization is?
So the Brooke Owens Fellowship Program is a program open to undergraduate women who are interested in entering the space industry. And the fellowship provides these women with summer internships at leading space industry companies, and they're fully paid. So you will get a paycheck. And I was a Brooke Owens Fellow. Check mark. Yeah.
Check mark. That's a good thing. Yeah.
So I was a Brooke Owens Fellow last year, this past summer, and that was the first year that they had it. So I was first class. And now I'm volunteering at their summit that they're having here in DC. So this is the 2018 class. And it's a wonderful organization. We have, I'm blanking on the number of fellows, but we have over 40 fellows this year. And they're all wonderful, amazing women. And they are currently, right now, working on Grand Challenge problems. And I was lucky enough to help plan that part of the summit. And Grand Challenges, probably heard about Grand Challenges. A lot of different organizations as well as the government does Grand Challenges where there's a problem that tends to be a universal problem, and a person with a lot of money invites organizations, individuals to come together to bring forth a dream solution that involves partnerships with nonprofit organizations, businesses, all of that, advancements in technology depending on the problem you're looking at. And so we're pretty much giving the fellows upstairs, let's see, a couple of hours today and tomorrow to solve 2 Grand Challenge problems. One of the Grand Challenge problems is orbital debris, the problem involved with orbital debris.
Nice.
Yeah, they have 2 days to figure that out.
Well, we've been working on it for a while. You guys have got 2 days.
You got 2
Start,
days.
ladies. Yes, start, ladies.
Yep, and the other Grand Challenge that some of the teams are working on is coastal relief. How can we solve the economic and human factor crisis when it comes to hurricanes here on the east coast of the U.S. and the natural disaster that comes with that. And so you can see that we give a pretty broad look at 2 different challenges.
Yeah.
But these girls are able to bring in what they've learned from the companies they're interning at, own research that they've done on the subject, and working in teams they're able to work together and bring their own skill sets together to try to find a dream solution for these problems.
Which is, I love seeing that the promotion of women in STEM, especially the last few years, as it's come to the forefront, and to see things like this that are no pun intended, stemming from that is incredible. It sounds like you guys are up to some awesome things over there.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And so for anybody that's excited about following in your footsteps, do you have any words of advice for them? Just where to get started, or what to do when times get tough? I think you would willingly say that you love to continue to add more things to your list, and it's impressive that you're able to accomplish so much. So any words of advice for anybody that wants to say, hey, I want to be like her when I grow up?
So follow your own path. Don't try to follow the same footsteps that I've had, because everyone's path is going to be different. There are going to be different opportunities. There are going to be different challenges. There are going to be different barriers that people are going to face. Mm-hmm. And so you can have someone that you look up to as an example of what you want to do, but definitely chart your own path. And if you find that you don't have any opportunities surrounding you, especially when you go to college, create those opportunities. That's what I had to do at Duke. Nobody at Duke was performing research for agroecological systems for space habitation. So I created my own research and approached professors who I had never met, had never talked to before, but who I thought may be interested in supporting me on my research. And they ended up supporting me. Mm-hmm. And so just finding those mentors, finding those moments where you're like, okay, I can create an opportunity for myself here. Mm-hmm. And of course, the hardest moments tend to be the moments that end up bringing the most clarity that I've found, because like I said, I initially started off at Duke wanting to go into medicine and go the medical field route. But in my sophomore year, I kind of had to have that soul searching moment where, was I really happy going into medical school, pursuing the major that I had been pursuing at that time? And I realized I wasn't, and that my passions really were in space exploration and environmental science. And at the time, I wasn't sure how I could connect the two together, because the first thoughts you think of when you think of space exploration are engineering, heavy STEM fields, rockets, stuff like that. Biology tends to be one of the backseat things that you can think about. Mm-hmm. And so I was afraid of disappointment. I was afraid of disappointing my friends and family by changing my major, by going a different route from where I said I would go. But I am so thankful that I followed what I was really passionate about and made that decision to be like, this is my life. Yeah. I'm going to have to live it. So I'm going to go with what my heart and what my gut are telling me, and that's I want to pursue agriculture in space.
Well, I mean, it seems to be working out okay for you. I mean, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves or anything, but you've done amazing work so far, and it's credible to. I mean, it's almost impossible to keep up with what the organization's doing. You guys are always have something that's happening right now and something else in the pipeline, which always makes it intriguing to catch up with you guys anytime that I'm lucky enough to walk by you at a convention that we're at. So thank you so much for coming on today and giving us updates on what's going on, and hopefully we can do that again in the future. But before we say bye to everybody, could you give everybody all of your information for social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for both yourself and your organization?
Yes, you can find our website at www.deepspaceecology.com. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook. To find Deep Space Ecology, just look up Deep Space Ecology. For my own personal social media, on Twitter, I'm at Duke Morgan Mars. On Instagram, I'm astroecologist. Mm-hmm. And then I have my own researcher page on Facebook as well.
Awesome. All right, so everybody make sure to go and follow. We're going to drop all those links below in the description, and you guys will be able to check it out. So, Morgan, thank you so much for your time today and taking time out of your trip to DC to be able to talk to us and give us updates on everything you've got going on. And good luck with the Kickstarter, and hopefully we'll get some more updates from you guys soon.
Thank you, Ron.
And everybody watching at home, thank you so much. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.